My name is Maureen Haney, and I am part of the Tutor.com client services team. I primarily work with our military and government users, but as you may know, Tutor.com has a vast range of users, including military, libraries, K-12, higher education, and our corporate programs. We're super excited about our webinar today because this is the first time we've offered something focusing on the early childhood age group. At Tutor.com, we have a plethora of experts behind the scenes, and we love the opportunity to use their powers for good and share some of that expertise with you. Our presenter today is not only an expert in early childhood education on a professional level, but also has 2 young children of her own. So it's my pleasure to introduce Marianne Curtis, who is a valuable member of our Learning Services team.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad you guys are joining us today. So we're going to be talking about preparing your preschooler, some summer tips for parents of early childhood learners. As she said, my name is Marianne Curtis. I'm the General Education Manager here at Tutor.com, and I'm super excited to be talking with you guys today. All right. So in this current world, our world has completely changed over the past couple months due to COVID. So a lot of us are now working from home. We're looking for another job. We're stay-at-home parents. And sometimes we have more kids than we were expecting because school's closed, preschool's closed, summer camps are closed. And so our world is just completely different. And we're trying to balance work with parenting and teaching all at the same time. And let me tell you, it's hard. And there are going to be times where you're going to get frustrated, but I'm here to kind of help you out and give you some tips and guidance as to how you can structure your day to make it a little easier, as well as some fun activities that you guys can do with your kids. A lot of the activities I'm going to share today with you guys are things that if you are working from home, and I will vouch for this, I do this all the time with my kids, I will set something up for them and I will go work while watching them and letting them do it. So let's talk a little bit about who I am and why I think I'm special enough to be able to talk with you guys today. So I'm a former early childhood education teacher and administrator. I've taught ages 2 through 8, and I've also been the director of 2 different preschools. I have a bachelor's in elementary education, a master's in reading education, and as Maureen said, my most impressive qualification, I believe, is that I am a mom to a 2- and a 5-year-old. So I am right there with you guys in the same boat on the front lines, trying to make sure that they are taken care of and they are learning while all this is going on, and making sure that no matter what, they're engaged and having fun. So what can we do? Sometimes I feel like this little guy on the screen where he's just like, I don't know what to do. The kids are going crazy. The kids are running around. Sure, we can all relate to that. So there are a few things that I always like to stress upon parents when talking about how to structure your day. So you can create a schedule. Now, this is a schedule that I actually created in my Outlook, my work Outlook. So it's next to my work calendar. And I still get the reminders. I still get the pop-ups. It's great. And you don't have to structure it quite like this so that you have something every half hour or so. You can be a little more flexible if you need to. But this way it gives me a reminder as I'm working, I need to make sure that we're getting in math activity in, or I need to make sure we're going downstairs or going outside or downstairs and playing. The nice thing is that you can be flexible with these schedules. Kids thrive off routine, but they also thrive off being allowed to do what they want to do to a degree. So if you're finding that your kids are loving the art activity that you put in, that they're doing, and it's time for math, and you're like, you know what? I don't really feel like they want to do math right now. They want to continue on with this art activity. Go for it. Let them do that. If on the flip side, if they are just like, oh, this art activity is so boring, Mom, I'm done with this. Change it to something else. It doesn't have to be set in stone of like, we do this from this to this time and this to this to that. You can be flexible in that. Now, one thing I always like to start my morning with, because 99.9% of preschool, pre-K, and kindergarten teachers start their mornings with this, is the morning meeting or morning group. So you can do this, obviously, like I said, I'm a former preschool teacher, so I have an old calendar that I pulled out. Granted, I think it had like 2014 in the year, but still, we can work with it. So with this, you don't have to have a fancy calendar like this. You can use a just paper calendar, wall calendar. You can use a desk calendar. You can use something that, you know, you make yourself from construction paper or poster board, but just have a calendar so they know, okay, today is Thursday, July 9th. So let's count 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9. That helps with number recognition. Let's talk about the days of the week. There are so many songs out there you can sing about the days of the week. And I'm sure if your preschooler has been in preschool or in kindergarten, they know some of those songs and can teach you those songs. So think about, you know, what if it's July, what was the month before, what was the month after? If it's Thursday, what was the day before, the day after? So they get used to saying, you know, knowing the days of the week in order, knowing the months of the year in order. And also talk about the weather. I mean, it's sunny, it's warm outside. Are they going to want to wear a winter coat and a hat? No. Are they going to need an umbrella if it's sunny? No. Let's talk about flip-flops and shorts and bathing suits and stuff like that. So talk about the weather and how it could change. Another fun thing my kids like to do is yoga. So I am not a yogi by any stretch of the imagination, but my daughter was introduced to yoga from her preschool teacher. And when her preschool closed down and she could not go anymore, one of the first things she said is, "Mom, am I still going to be able to do yoga in the morning?" So I found on YouTube, we just get YouTube on my smart TV, there is Cosmic Kids Yoga. That's her favorite one. And this woman, she has so many different videos of different yoga routines and yoga programs that are themed specifically for kids. The one in this picture is actually like Little Mermaid Under the Sea. My daughter loves it because she's obsessed with Ariel. But it really just preps her mind and her body for the day. It gets her in that zone of like, I'm ready to learn, I'm ready to go, and really just gets her prepped for the day. Another thing that we like to do in the afternoons are hands-on activities. So my daughter is she's very analytical, so just like me, so she likes puzzles especially. So she will definitely work on puzzles more than anything else. This is the United States puzzle where she's actually like focused on trying to find all states and where exactly they go. But doing some kind of hands-on activity is wonderful. It keeps them engrossed and keeps them engaged, and it keeps them using those fine and their gross motor skills. Something else I always like to recommend is just follow their interests. If a child is interested in something, they're going to be more engaged in the activity, and then that actually kind of rolls into and inspires other activities. So my daughter loves princesses. She loves the Disney princesses. And with that, we were having a dance party one day to all the Disney songs. And we started talking about how, you know, Snow White lived in a little cottage in the woods, and Belle lived in the village, but then she went to live with the beasts in a castle. And she decided she wanted to build the beast castle. So I was like, okay, great. What are we going to build it out of? And so she decided no blocks, nothing, no Legos. She wanted to do her magnet tiles. So we got out the magnets and she built it, and you can see her like East Tower and West Tower. But we talked about how with magnets, there are poles. There's a North Pole, South Pole, and how, you know, they either attack or like they go together or they pull apart, push apart. And so she loved learning about that, to the point where we were FaceTiming my brother a couple weeks later, who had given her the magnet tiles. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, Uncle Dan, you would not believe it. Magnets have poles, like the North Pole, like where Santa Claus lives." And I mean, she just loved it. But we went from one activity of dancing and singing princess songs to learning about magnets. And that's how things can roll. And things, if they're interested in, you can go from one thing to something completely different and still have them completely engaged. If you leave this webinar with learning one thing, I ask that you learn this. Don't be afraid of mess. Preschoolers learn by doing and by touching. They're tactile learners. They thrive off not only like feeling things in their hands, but basically just learning the technology, learning the vocabulary and the techniques that can really, you know, help them apply to other experiences. And it also encourages independence. So with giving them this independence, so in this picture, my daughter wanted to make lunch. And we have an open concept family room kitchen. So I'm sitting on the couch and she comes to me and she's like, "Mom, I'm hungry." I'm like, "Well, what do you want?" She said, "I want a peanut butter and jelly sandwich." I said, "Okay." And I started to get up and she's like, No, I want to make it." And that's one thing that with her going into kindergarten, we've been trying to really encourage her to do things more independently. And so she got the bread out, she got the peanut butter out, she got the jelly out, she got the knife out, she spread it all, she cut it down the middle. And I'm telling you, this was like the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich in the history of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. She was so excited and so happy and so proud of herself. It didn't matter that there was jelly all over my table and my floor and my refrigerator. It didn't matter. She was so happy. And so we cleaned it up together, and she spoke about it for weeks on end about how she made herself a peanut butter sandwich. And as soon as my husband got home that night, she's like, Dad, I made lunch all by myself. And now she wants to do it all the time for herself and her brother. So it definitely encourages independence, which is what we want out of our preschoolers. Stay positive. Now, I know it can be hard. We have a lot going on these days. We have a lot of just different outside forces coming down between work and family and keeping the house clean and making sure that everyone is happy and learning. And we can get frustrated very easily. And trust me, when it's like mom, dad, mom, dad, mom, dad, it can get a little aggravating. But kids feed off your energy. So we need to try and stay positive as much as possible. If you need a break, it's completely fine to say, okay, you know what? Mommy needs 5 minutes. Daddy needs 5 minutes. Can you go play in your room? Can you go play downstairs, go outside, whatever it is, and just relax for a few minutes? Go outside, get some fresh air. Sometimes when I'm getting frustrated, I will actually just say, okay, kids, we're going outside to play. They can go play on their playground. I'm going to sit on the patio and just breathe and just try and like compose myself. You can also find some easy go-tos for calming yourself. One thing that I like to find, or I like to do, is I actually, at a festival a couple years ago, I found a roller ball of this lavender and some other oils just for calming. And so I will put it on my wrist and I'll put it on my upper lip, basically for me to breathe in, and that helps me calm down so much. If it gets really bad, I have been known to go to my bedroom and yell into a pillow, whatever works for you. No judgment, do what works for you so that you can be the best parent possible for your kids. And okay, so I know I said if you take anything away, take away, don't be afraid of mess. Take 2 things away at least from this webinar. And know that you're not alone. Obviously, I'm in this boat with you guys. Everyone on this webinar is in the same boat as you guys. Your friends, your family, they're all in this boat. So please, if you need to, vent. Call somebody. Obviously, social distancing, can't really hang out that well, but call, do Zoom meetings, Skype meetings, FaceTime meetings, do FaceTime coffee meetings, whatever it is, and vent or talk about sports. I know baseball season's about to start. Talk about that. Get your brain off of what's going on and just kind of zen out and relax. This is the big one. Quiet and nap time is a must. So you might be wondering, like, hey, you know, my child's 5, my child's 4, they don't nap anymore. They don't have to nap. Nap time is, yeah, for younger ones that need it. Quiet time is for the older ones that don't need to sleep, but they need to decompress. They need to relax. They need to calm down. All morning long, it's been go, 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 go. And they need some time just to sit down, read a book, lay on their bed and play, you know, with a toy or something like that, and just relax, calm down. It also gives you time. It gives you time to focus. So I will say that some of my best work is done between the times of 12 and 3 when my kids do quiet and nap time. Don't necessarily tell my boss that, but yes, that's when I'm able to really sit down and focus and really concentrate on what I'm doing. It also gives you time to recharge and rest so that when nap and quiet time is over, you're ready to go again. If you need to, you take a nap too. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, when you have an infant, they're always like, oh, sleep when the baby sleeps, and that never happens. But in this case, yeah, if you need to, take a nap while they're napping. Totally cool. Just make sure that everyone's getting that downtime, because at some point, if they don't get that downtime and you don't get that downtime, someone or multiple people will have a meltdown. So now you're probably wondering, how do you make sure your child is learning? So I've given you some tips on how to structure your day, but how do you know that what you're doing is actually getting through to them? So I've got some good news for you. One of my favorite quotes is, play is our brain's favorite way of learning. And Diane Ackerman, when she said it, is so true. So play is how preschoolers learn. Like I said, they're tactile learners. They're hands-on. They love to touch and feel. Sitting a child down and talking to them or lecturing them or reading them a big long book isn't going to do anything. Their attention span's going to be gone in 2 minutes, if that. Let them play. I know when I was teaching, everyone would always say, oh my gosh, you have the best job ever. You just play all day. And I know other teachers would get upset about that because no, you're educating, you're teaching. But I never did because I was playing all day. When I had my pre-K class, I was playing with them because they were learning to play. So I want to talk to you about some activities that you can do it's play, but they're learning and how they're going to be learning through those play activities. So some fun activities that your kids are going to enjoy. So kids love to move, especially in the summer. So go on a nature walk. You don't have to go to the park or to the woods or anywhere to necessarily go on a nature walk. You can do it in your backyard. You can do it in your neighborhood. Talk about different bugs you see. Talk about different birds. Talk about what you hear, the sounds, the smells, the crunch of the grass underneath your feet. Talk about, if you see honeysuckle, have them taste the honeysuckle. Stuff like that to get their senses involved. Kids love it. Also go on a backyard treasure hunt. One of the things my kids absolutely love to do is go on treasure hunts. And so what I'll do is I will actually take like a paper bag from the grocery store and I'll cut it so it's flat, and then I'll let them draw a treasure map on it. And then we wrinkle it up and squish it up and then unfold it, and it looks like a weathered map. And you can actually, if you want to do it even more weathered, you can dip it in some diluted coffee or tea to give it even a more weathered, worn look. And so once it's dry, you can take it outside. You can set your computer up on the back patio and be typing away while they're going around looking for this treasure. They're gonna look for a while, trust me. And you can hide stuff out there if you want to, or you can just let them go and see what they find on their own. But they will love it, and they will give you some time to do some other things. Another thing you can do is to do an obstacle course. So you can set it up yourself and then have them go through it. And after a couple of times of setting it up, you challenge them to go set it up. And that way you're able to get some work done, whether it's work or housework or whatever you need to do, take care of the baby, and they're having fun doing an obstacle course. Some other fun activities are just to be creative. So my daughter loves anything chalk related. She will go and spend hours upon hours upon hours and color every single part of our driveway, sidewalk, back patio, everything she can with chalk. One of our favorite things to do is chalk stained glass, and it's so simple. You just get some painter's tape, like the blue painter's tape, and do a shape, and then do some lines across in the middle of the shape. Any lines, any way, any direction, however long or short you want them to be, and let them color in. And then once they're done coloring, you take all the painter's tape off, and it comes into a beautiful stained glass. And my daughter, this one we actually did at Easter time, but she, a couple weeks before that, she did the whole bottom of our driveway so that when people walked by during walks, because that was in the big, we were very much social distancing at that time, but that way when people walked by, they could see it and it would bring happiness to them, she said. So another thing that we love to do is dance parties. And I saw on Facebook several weeks ago where somebody actually did glow sticks and put them on the kids' bodies and had them dance. So I went to the dollar store and got a bunch of glow sticks and attached them to the kids' clothes and their bodies, and they just danced. And then I took a video of it and some pictures, and we talked about how when we replayed the video, we talked about how what they felt like they were doing was different or similar to what it actually looked like they were doing, because obviously they look like stick figures here versus the actual person. So she loved kind of dissecting that. So some of my favorite activities are math and science activities because they're so much fun and the kids don't even know they're math or science. So my daughter loves to do Marshmallow Architecture, where you can build with marshmallows and toothpicks. And you can talk about how, you need a strong base to hold things up, and you can build off of in different ways, and it just let them explore and have fun and be creative with that. My daughter has loved cooking and baking with us, and she was about 2.5. She probably breaks eggs better than most adults I know. But we talk about how when measuring when baking, you have to be precise. We talk about how going from, if you're making a cake, how it's liquid, and then you put it in the oven and it bakes and it comes out as solid. So we talk about science in that way, and she just absolutely loves it. Another thing that she loves to do is color mixing, and there's a couple ways to do this. So one is that you just do different cups of water with food coloring, and then use eyedroppers or medicine droppers to put them into the different ice cube trays, and then they can mix colors in each individual ice cube tray. And then you can actually freeze it and then have colorful ice cubes. Another thing you can do is do the exact same thing only with Kool-Aid. And so with the Kool-Aid, after probably about an hour or two, just test it out after so long, when it starts to harden up, you can actually put toothpicks in there or popsicle sticks and make Colloid Popsicles. So they're making something, they're having fun, but they're still learning about color mixing and how red plus yellow equals orange and all that. So it's science and it's fun, and they don't even know they're learning, but they're learning. So some of kids' favorite activities are just acting out and pretending and, doing plays. So I always recommend being creative as much as possible. Go into that old sock drawer and pull out some socks, pull out some buttons and some felt and shoestrings or whatever you can find, and just have them make puppets and then have them put together a puppet show. You can also do a play. My daughter loves to dress up and put on plays. And you can also, one thing that I used to do when I was teaching is I would actually read a book out to kids and have them act it out as well. So they would basically be acting out what I was talking, what I was reading. So kids just love to be creative like that. So technology is a great tool, and kids pick it up very easily. I do recommend you use it in small chunks. You just don't want to necessarily have your kids sitting in front of the TV or on the computer all day, but it definitely is something great and a great option. I definitely encourage apps such as ABC Mouse and PBS Kids, something educational where they're having fun, but they're still learning. The PBS Kids, I will let you know, has a game app as well as a video app where they show like the shows on PBS, like Daniel Tiger and stuff like that. Both are fine, but the game one definitely has more engaging activities for them. And then something I found out about recently from my child's preschool is Osmo. And if you're not familiar with Osmo, it's so cool. If your child has a iPad or a Kindle Fire, there are Osmos for this. And so basically your child will put their tablet in the stand. The little red thing on top is actually a camera, and it communicates with the tablet. So anything that you're doing on that pad, where you can see that ice cream, the girl's making the ice cream, that's going to actually be reflected onto the screen. And so it then animates stuff. You can do, you can write things out. You can do letter recognition. You can do number recognition, adding, subtracting. You can even create code for computers. All kinds of cool stuff with that. So that's something really good. And it's honestly, as if you already have the tablet, I think it's less than $100 for the majority of the starter kit. So not too bad. So something that I always like to point out to parents is that not every lesson has to be an activity. There are a plethora of teachable moments in every day. So you might be wondering, what is a teachable moment? A teachable moment is an unplanned event during the day that adults can use as a learning opportunity for kids. When a child displays an action or behavior that can be used as a learning tool, parents and providers should capitalize on the moment and provide the opportunity to extend or expand the child's learning. So it's not something that you planned, like I said, it's something that literally just happens on a whim, and you can talk to them about it or show them, if they ask a question about how something works, show them how it works. And it's something that is, happens at a moment's notice, but it's something that they can learn from. So some literacy teachable moments are, Mom, how do you spell? This is like the thing that comes out of my daughter's mouth every other time she opens it. It's either this or, Mom, I want food. But basically what I've started to do with her is, if she wants to find a show on TV that she wants to watch, or if she wants to search for something on her tablet, I actually make her spell it out. And so I will tell her the letters, and she has to go and find the letter and write it out. And this is helping with her letter recognition. Something else we do is I let her read to me. So she has some favorite books, like Corduroy is one of her favorite books. And I can't even tell you how many times we've read it. So I've actually gone to the point where I'm like, okay, I want you to read it to me. And no, she's not reading it word for word. And there are times where she's reading words that are not even on the page, or like there might not even be words on that page. But she's telling me the story, and she's using the context clues from the pages, from the pictures, to tell the story. I also have her do it so that if it's a newer book, one that we haven't read or have only read a couple of times, I'll have her do that too, because that really gets her brain thinking and gets her creative and her imagination going, using those context clues as to figure out what's going on with pictures. The ABC search is something that I used to do when I was a kid, and something that that Kate loves to do as well, my daughter. And so with this, basically, when you're on a long car drive, a short car drive, go and do ABC search. So we're looking for the letter A. Okay, here's in Chicago, there's an A. Okay, we got an A, let's go for a B. And you just go down the alphabet and find the different letters. That is helping with letter recognition. And they're helping the kids realize that letters are everywhere. And that's how important they are in life, is that they are literally everywhere. And then to go along with the Mom, how do you spell, it's the write by letter sound. So once my daughter had mastered the Mom, how do you spell, and I was telling her what letters, we moved on to letter sound. Because when she first started staying home back in March, when her preschool closed, she knew probably about a third of the letter sounds. So I started saying, okay, if you want to search for something, I'm going to give you the letter sound. And so I'd go, okay, ma, ma, ma. And she'd be like, Q. And I'm like, no. And sometimes she'd be silly and just give me the random letters. But then she got to the point where she's like, okay, Mom's serious about this. Let's actually work on this. She now is to the point where she knows every letter sound. And I flipped it on her. So I'm like, okay, the first letter is M. What sound does M make? And I make her tell me the sound. But this really helps her with the letter sound recognition. And this is a prequel to learning how to read, is learning what sounds each letter makes. So some math teachable moments. I love math teachable moments. I'm not a math person, but I love math teachable moments because they're just everywhere. It's just everywhere. So you can have your child count, okay, how many chicken nuggets are we having for lunch today? How many grapes? How many strawberries? How many cars do you see on the street? There's so many different things that they can count in this world. So I always encourage that. Lego patterns. So if they're playing with Legos or blocks or anything, make a pattern. You know, we do red, white, red, white. Those are AB patterns. Yellow, yellow, blue, yellow, yellow, blue, AAB patterns. You know, encourage them to come up with different patterns and see how it repeats. And then I Spy. So this is a game that I did all the time when I was teaching. I do all the time with my daughter. And there's so many different versions of it you can do. I Spy something that is the shape of a triangle. I Spy something that is the shape of a rectangle. And you can also do I Spy something that is blue. I Spy something that is red. And then I Spy something that begins with the letter R. I Spy something that begins with the letter M. And it really gets them thinking and really recognizing shapes in their environment, colors in their environment, how things are spelled, because you need to know what letters. So I Spy is something that can actually teach a plethora of things. And then some science teachable moments. So with the science teachable moments, again, there's a lot of different things you can do that they just don't realize that they're learning. So in a bathtub or pool, it's summertime. We're going to be swimming a lot. We're going to be in the bathtub a lot because they're dirty. They're getting dirty all the time. Talk about items that could sink or float, and why something might sink and why something might float. And have them get some items and experiment. Okay, here's a little person. Do we think this is going to sink or is this going to float? And then put it in the water and see what it does. And then talk about, okay, that sunk. Why do you think it sunk? Or it floated. Why did you think it floated? On a rainy day, go over the water cycle. Go talk about, you know, where the rain comes from and how it moves through the world, and talk about why water is important to everything, to us, the plants, the animals, everything. On a walk, talk about the parts of a flower and how, you know, going back to the water cycle, how the roots pull up the water, up the stem to the flower, and talk about just the different parts of it, the seeds, the petals, and what all of them do. As long as you're having fun with your kids this summer and you're doing creative, fun, physical activities, they're going to be learning and they're going to be engaged. Here are some resources that I have. It's also on that resource page that we have attached. So, feel free to check any of these out. The Cosmic Kids Yoga is the one that I had the picture of before of the Little Mermaid yoga. And then the Learning Station and Jack Hartman are also two musical groups that I definitely recommend for fun songs on YouTube.
All right, thank you so much, Marianne. We do have time for a few questions. We've gotten a couple of questions. So if you have questions, please go ahead and type them in the question box. So the first question that we have, this all sounds great, but any thoughts on how do you do this while you're working?
Yes, absolutely. So I do these while I'm working. A lot of times I'm setting them up and then kind of sitting back while they're doing it. It is going to cause mess sometimes, but like I said, don't be afraid of mess. I work from home full time. I did even before COVID happened. And you just have to kind of be flexible with it. So I'm lucky in the sense that my boss is pretty flexible. And, if I need to go take 5 minutes here and there and set something up for the kids and then let them play, that's what I do. But it's one of those things where you have to use the time that you have and be able to try and balance it as much as you can.
Great. Okay, so the next question we have is, what should be the ideal time for wake up and bedtime for kids this age group so that it helps them in the daylight?
Absolutely. So it's funny because I was on a very strict schedule with my kids in the very beginning of this because that's what we were with going to preschool. And so my kids were getting up about 6:30, 7, and then going to bed. My son goes to bed about 7:15, my daughter 8:30. But the later in the day or later in the year, later in the summer, it obviously is lighter, longer. So one thing, I try to stick with that schedule. We did get off that schedule for a little bit, and I will be honest, the kids went insane. So we went back to that schedule, and I have added blackout curtains to my kids' room, so that helps them sleep, but it also helps them with just the structure of the day. So I always wake them up about, my daughter who's 5, I wake her up at 6:45 in the morning, and then she goes to bed at 8 to 8:30 most times. Sometimes I'll let her stay up till 9 if we're watching a movie. My son though, who's 2, he wakes up about 7:15, just depending on how my daughter's wake up is going. And then I usually put him to bed at 7:15. So he gets about 12 hours of sleep and 12 hours of in-between time. And then he also naps for 2 to 3 hours.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have another question. Can you talk a little bit about social emotional learning and some skills or tips for that?
Yes. So this is a little more difficult just because if they're just in the house with themselves or with their siblings, it's a little more difficult to talk a little bit about social skills because they're not around a whole lot of kids. So one thing that I have done with my daughter is we've done FaceTime chats with her friends just to get her that social ability and stuff like that. Something that else that has come out of it is that she and her brother are either thick as thieves or they are butting heads constantly. And so it's always a matter of constantly just saying, okay, let's stop, let's take a break, let's use our words, let's talk about these. It's a very emotional time. Kids do not understand. My daughter calls this the sickness, and she doesn't understand why she can't go see her friends, and she doesn't understand, why she's not going to school. And so that's really hard, and it's really emotional for her and for her friends as well. And so for me, I honestly just talk to her as to a degree as honestly as I can about what's going on. But what I do emotionally, like when it comes to her emotional learning, I do what I do with her all the time, and that really hasn't changed. I make her use her words. I make her, if she's throwing a fit, and she will, if you saw she's a redhead, she fits that bill completely. I'll say, you know what? If you're throwing a fit, go into your room. When you've calmed down, you've relaxed, we'll come out and talk about it. And I think that she's so used to just kind of being other places where people are just like, okay, yeah, let's do this, and not having having that pushback sometimes from me, that she's not used to that. So it's kind of like, okay, um, she is having to kind of get used to not always getting her way. But I mean, social emotional wise, it's kind of hard during this time, but just do the best you can.
Okay, and that kind of ties into the next question, which was any suggestions on how to handle the toddler tantrums or ways to reduce.
Oh, toddler tantrums. Yes. So my son is 2, like I've said. He is a newer 2, but he started the terrible 2s about 18 months. So for me, my thing with toddler tantrums is if, and I try to organize my day so that I'm not ever in a call or a meeting when he could potentially go and have a tantrum. Even when I taught 2-year-olds, if a toddler starts a tantrum, I kind of just let them be, because I have found, and it's different child to child, but I have found that with most children, if you try and hold them or distract them, they just get more upset. So for me, I just kind of let him be on the floor or wherever he's at, and then he knows now that when he's done, he'll come to me and just, he's fine. We hug, we talk. As weird as that might sound to some of you, like I talk to my 2-year-old and say, okay, I understand you're frustrated, and he is starting to use more words, but still not. But there are times where you have those times where if you're working on something and he's throwing a tantrum, I think there's been once or twice where he's screaming and crying and I'm trying to do a phone call. I will, and judgment-free zone here, I will put him in his room, in his crib, and just let him cry in there, and I will finish it up, because I know he's not going to get harmed in there. I know he's not going to be in any trouble. He's there for 2-3 minutes max, but he gets to calm down, and then I get to finish what I'm doing and go on. But toddler tantrums are hard, especially when you're working. I would just recommend trying to schedule anything around it, like during nap time or when they're sleeping, or if there's somebody else home with them.
Great, thank you. And one more, getting back to the bedtime thing, they had a follow-up on that, that they have an older child who's 8, and he's the one that keeps the younger one, the 5-year-old, awake. So how do you manage 2 bedtimes?
Yes. So, and it's hard because I'm kind of in a similar situation where I'll be putting my 2-year-old to bed and my 5-year-old comes in and is like, hey, let's play. So I basically tell my 5-year-old, say, hey, it's the baby's bedtime now, and I will, if you need anything, go see dad, or you can wait the 10 minutes, 15 minutes, however long it takes them to go down that night, and just, go play, go do something in your room, and then I will be out with you shortly. And I always talk to her and tell her, hey, when it's your time for your bed, I come and I cuddle with you, and nobody disrupts us. It's just me and you. So we need to do the same for him. He wants to have his alone time with me. He wants to have his cuddle time with me. So we'll have our cuddle time, and then I'll put him to bed, and then I can do whatever with you. I can get you a popsicle. I can get you a drink. I can get you a movie on, or whatever you need, and then we'll have our cuddle time when it's time for you to go to bed. But that is something that we've struggled with as well. So.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so I think that's about all the questions that we have time for today, but if you still have further questions, please feel free to reach out to us on some of the information is up there on the screen. If you have any questions about the program of Tutor.com, you can also reach out to us there. If you do have students starting kindergarten this year, please remember that our tutors are available to help with any of your academic questions in the fall. Thank you so much for joining us today.